PrepKids, Personal and Family Emergency Preparedness. Why should you prepare for an emergency or a disaster? Well, the main reason is to stay independent and healthy, to keep your child independent and healthy as possible, before, during, and after. It will also reduce the effects of a disaster on your child. Why prepare? If you think it won't happen to us, like many people, you really might wonder why you should prepare. Well, let me explain why we talk about that. Let's think about what's happened in Iowa over the last decade. We've had tornadoes, floods, severe winter storms. We've actually had the results of a minor earthquake in southern Iowa. Fire. We've actually had a prairie fire in Iowa in recent years. We have extreme heat, and we've had flu epidemics. That's why we need to prepare. Some people may think they shouldn't prepare, and they aren't prepared because someone else is going to take care of them. We have phenomenal emergency services in Iowa. On average, they can get to your home in 10 minutes. But during a disaster or a major health event, they won't be able to help. In most communities, as in most national communities, there is one emergency staff person for 1,000 citizens. Now that's emergency staff that includes paramedics, policemen, firemen, first responders. And the 1,000 citizens, think about 1/5 of those are persons with disabilities and may need extra attention. So during a disaster or an emergency situation in the community, 911 will not be able to respond like they normally do when you call them. So you need to be prepared. The national message tells us to be prepared to take care of yourself for 3 days. Why 3 days? Well, similar to the previous story, I want to tell you what happens during a disaster. Let's say a tornado hits, like the little graphic on the left side. Things that happen first is you're going to respond to your home and your neighbors and your neighborhood, and things may start happening in your community through your hospital or through volunteer services. But then Johnson County, in this case that we're talking about, emergency planning takes into effect, and they open their notebook of emergency planning and services kick in. Some of those could start immediately, and some may take a few days to start. Now, if Johnson County feels overwhelmed or believes they're going to be overwhelmed, then they can call Iowa Emergency Services. And those do not come in and help until they are called. And so on a state level, services could come and start helping out. Whether it's Red Cross at the state level, other services can come in. At the point where Iowa feels that they're overwhelmed or are going to be overwhelmed, they then can call national services, or they would call FEMA, for example. And then national services would come in. For instance, maybe bringing temporary housing units in, bringing in more financial help, more assistance in getting a larger amount of services, maybe for a larger population or a larger geographic area. So that's why it could take up to 3 days for you to get the services you need. There's other ideas too to consider, is that because of the disaster geographically or the roads, people just won't be able to get to you to help you. So be ready to take care of yourself for 3 days. In order to do that, you need to be informed, make a plan, and build a kit. That's the national message that has been coming out since Katrina, but actually this was all in place before Katrina. But we realized that families needed to be better prepared, as did communities and states. So be prepared, make a plan, and build a kit. And that's exactly what PrepKids is going to help you do. And PrepKids is also designed so any family could actually use it, but it takes into consideration the special needs of children with disabilities or chronic health conditions. If you haven't already printed off the booklet to follow along in this training, you might want to stop right now and print off that book to follow along. PrepKids is going to help you think about your child's abilities and their needs. It's going to help you create a plan that's based on your child's individual needs or others in your family, and the environment's capacity that you live in. So your home, your neighborhood, your school, and community. It's going to help you take tangible action steps, real things to do, not just kind of think about it, but it's going to help you actually write down things you need to do and action steps to get done. It's also based on realistic expectations and responsibilities, so you're planning for a reality, not thinking somebody's going to take care of you automatically. Now, if you go to your booklet on page 1, you'll see the 7 steps that PrepKids is going to help you go through to make your personal and family emergency preparedness plan. First, you're going to begin to learn about the types of emergencies that could happen and what to do for them. This is going to be a quick go-through of things that might happen, but they're going to get you started. You're going to complete a personal and family assessment. Step 3, you're going to develop a personal support network. 4, you're going to gather emergency papers and medical information. Step 5, you're going to make a plan to get and create a 3 to 7 day supply of medications. Step 6, you're going to make an emergency supply kit. And finally, you're going to make your home, daycare, school, or work environment safer. Now, if you follow along as I show you the different steps, there'll be little indicators as to what page we are in the booklet, and I'll also try to remember where we are to keep you aligned with where we're going. So let's start on page 2 and talk about step 1, knowing what types of emergencies that could happen and what to do. We're going to talk about the typical ones that happen in Iowa: tornadoes, floods, winter storms, earthquakes, fire, heat, or an epidemic. But I want you to think right now, what is the one that is most likely to happen? Well, if you think fire, you're right. Fire has the highest number of injuries and death rates in Iowa, so that's what we really need to be thinking about. But we're going to address all of them. And you'll notice that on page 2, as you learn about that there's going to be action steps for you to think about. Write down notes, things for you to remind yourself of things you do, or even at the bottom, clear action steps that you might think about after this presentation that you want to complete. So, as we go through the different types of emergencies, think about how you and or your child will be alerted or warned that something's happening. Where will you move to be in a safe place in your home? Can you stay in that place in your home? Or if you need to leave and go somewhere else, can you get transportation there? And where might that someplace else be? And finally, thinking about each disaster type, how will you return home and recover afterwards? Repair your home or get services back in place. So all through PrepKids, we're going to be talking about these types of steps and how these things are going to be happen. You'll hear these repeated several times. PrepKids takes an all hazards approach. What that means is, while there are some things that are very specific, for instance, a fire or smoke detector in your home, is that all of the types of disasters have certain things in common. So whether it's a fire, snowstorm, tornado, extreme heat, some type of epidemic by persons or passed by mosquitoes, or even a flood, some things have certain parts of your plan in common. So for instance, it doesn't matter if you have to leave your home because of a fire, or the power has gone off from a snowstorm and it's getting too cold, or your home is partially destroyed by a tornado, or the air conditioning goes out during extreme heat, or that you can no longer take care of your child in your home during an epidemic, or a flood causes you to leave, you have to go somewhere else. So where else is that going to be? Well, it can be the same place no matter what the disaster or emergency was. That's an example of all hazards approach. How are you going to be alerted? How are you going to know? Well, it's pretty much going to be, except unless it's a fire, radio, TV, your computer, something like that is going to tell you what's going on. That's the all hazards approach. You don't need something separate for each type of emergency. So let's start with fire and talk about fire. Well, how are you going to learn about a fire, that something's happening in your house? Well, that's your smoke alarms and smoke detectors. Let's talk about where they need to be. You should have a smoke detector on every floor of your home and outside of the bedrooms. You need to have a plan to be checking and changing the batteries routinely, at least every 6 months. Also, when you think about your smoke detector, can everybody hear it? If somebody has a hearing loss or a noise-induced hearing loss, they may not be able to hear that high beeping sound. And can they respond correctly? This is something to consider with your child, your own individual child. Do they know how to respond to that fire smoke detector going off? Will they panic? Will they run out? Will they hide under their bed? How are they going to respond to that? And how can you either correct that, show them how to react and respond correctly, or create a plan to deal with that? It might be that one of the parents is going to have to go to the bedroom or go to wherever the child is and do something different. The first alert example is a smoke detector commonly available across Iowa that actually talks. Instead of the high beeping pitch, which might alarm many children, is that it talks. And you use your own voice. So a voice that they're familiar with instructions that are specific to your home. So it might be something like, Joe, there's a fire. Or you might not use that word if that would panic him. Joe, I need you to get on the floor and crawl to the hallway. Joe, I need you to crawl out to the front door. It could be something very specific to your house and the directions you want them to follow. Also, in the situation of a fire, make sure that your child knows all the ways out of the home. Then look at your child's abilities. If they have a mobility disability, can that child get from their bedroom or get out of the different exits that are in all on their own? Does your child know the meeting places, that when you leave the home, we're all going to go somewhere and meet, so you know everybody's out? That might be the neighbor's porch, it might be everybody's going to go to the barn, someplace. Are they aware of it, and can they get there? And the last point is maybe the most important, is to really practice. Don't just talk through it or assume that your child knows, but really practice it, because that's going to identify what can go right and what can go wrong, that your child does or does not know what to do, and can they do it emotionally, physically, and intellectually. Can they do it? Now let's move on to tornadoes. How are you going to learn about it? Well, the most common way is a community warning system. That's the sirens that are in communities that tell you that something is going on. Now in Iowa, we kind of jump to the assumption that it's a tornado siren, but it's really in all types of disaster warning. So if the siren is going out, you need to get on your radio, TV, computer, your cell phone and find out exactly what's happening. You can also set other warnings up. For instance, in many air-conditioned houses, you can't hear that outdoor siren, so you need multiple backups through many parts of your emergency plan, and this is one. So you can set up systems that you get a text message or an email that something's happening. One way to get that is through emergency management. You can go to your county emergency management webpage and see if they have some type of alerting system. It might be called Code Red. That is one software program that you can sign up for that will send you the email and the text messages. You can also do the same thing through many of the weather stations that are available in Iowa, or through schools and work programs will also send out. So you might get multiple text messages if you sign up for many of these, but something that's telling you what's going on. Something else that you can get is a NOAA radio, or National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration radio, that you set. It will come on when there is an emergency going on weather-wise in your area. You do have to set those so it's specific to our geographic area, so you don't get an alert to wake you up that something's happening in Alaska or California. These are examples of them on the left. They all look a little different, but they're all serving the same purpose of coming on and telling you what's going on. On the right side is a weather radio, they're sometimes called, that's going to come on, but they're alternative alerting systems. So for a child who is deaf or hard of hearing, you might want a flashing light or something that is under their pillow that's going to shake and wake them up under their pillow so that they can then look at the radio and find out what's going on and follow up to what they should be doing. Also make sure that your child, but also everyone in your family, understands the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning. A watch means something could develop. You could put your hands around your eyes like you're doing binoculars to say you're watching out for a tornado. Warning means that a tornado has been seen in the area and that they should go to a safe place. Warning means they should go to a safe place with you, or even if they're on their own. And that is something important that parents should be modeling, going to a safe place when a warning is happening, because things can happen fast and change. And while many people like to watch the storm appear, it may be that they're out in the open then when it happens. So model good behavior, please. Sheltering. Where do you need to go? Well, you need to go to the lowest floor possible. You need to go into a room with no windows, and that might mean going into a bathroom. But going often in Iowa, it is in a basement setting, so that's why the example shows a basement. So know where to go. Do your children know where to go in case you're not there? Remember, part of emergency planning is assuming that it's not the best case scenario. So you might not be there when it happens. You could be at work, or you could be at the grocery store. So do they know where to go all on their own? Can they get there? If it's a mobility issue, can they get there? Or if it's at nighttime, for instance, and you have a child with mobility issues, you might have to help protect them in bed by covering them up with pillows. Does your child know how to respond, and can they respond correctly? So a child that has intellectual or cognitive or behavior issues, will they be able to go down to the basement and stay in that shelter setting? And again, practice, 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 because that is going to show you what any problems that might occur in this whole system, whether they don't know what to do, they can't get down there, or they won't stay down there. One parent who's taken this training at this section realized, wow, to keep my child who has autism, I'm going to have to get a second Barney and have it in the basement. So there's a soothing device in the basement, and think of ways to distract them until a tornado would be over. Next, let's talk about floods. You need to know your risk and understand. It's often confused when in Iowa people talk about their house or their work or their community being in a 100-year floodplain or a 5-year floodplain or something like that. Is realizing that in Iowa, if you're anywhere near a river or a stream, you might be in flood areas. And a 100-year, for example, floodplain doesn't mean it's going to happen every 100 years. It means that every year you have a 1 in 100 chance of it happening. So we can't rest that just because we had those big floods previously, we won't have them again in Iowa. You need to stay informed. What's going on? Is it the rivers? Is it the creeks backing up? How close is it to happening? And knowing again the difference between a watch, knowing that a flood is possible, that you're watching out for a flood, or a warning, meaning that a flood is happening or it is about to happen. It helps you stay informed about how far along in the preparation do you need to be, and how quickly do you need to be ready to leave your home. So, as part of being prepared for a flood is understanding your evacuation routes and knowing what might happen. And when you are told to evacuate, that you leave and don't wait. Especially if you have a child with a disability, you don't want it to happen too quickly and not be able to move. So during a flood situation, events can move faster than you might think or as predicted. Roads can change, so routes that you thought you might be going might not be available any longer if you wait too long. They may get covered by water. Also, it's very important to realize that if you wait too long, help may not be able to come. So the emergency responders or the police or the firemen might not be able to help you in that situation. And most likely, again, as we talked about, they are looking at a larger population group now, not just helping people one by one. And so all of a sudden, what was an emergency now can put your family into a crisis situation because you can't leave when you need to leave. So when you're told to leave, don't wait, leave. Be ready to go. Things to think about when you're talking about evacuation for a flood, or actually any, if we're talking all hazards, is think about transportation. You're going to have to move your family, the people in your family, maybe some others, and also the things that you need to take with you. It might be helpful to have a list available so you can grab them quickly. What assistive technology, what medications, what supplies, any calming. And we're going to talk later about important information that you'll have to need to take with you. And also be thinking about what different travel routes you may need to actually get around the flood. Let's talk about extreme heat. Again, stay informed. Know what's going on in your community, how warm it's getting, and is it safe or not. Staying hydrated, drinking enough fluids, and staying cool is important. For many children with disabilities, their condition or their medications may make them more susceptible to extreme heat. Thinking about an extreme heat, what are you going to do if you lose electricity in your home? Are there other places to stay cool, other places you can go? Now, many communities have shelters for heat or cold or during a larger disaster for housing. But you need to be listening on your radio or your TV to know which ones are open. They're not all open in every case. So listening to see where you can go to stay cool. That might be a mall, that might be a library, a rec center, or schools. Also think about what happens if you lose power for devices that are needed. If you have a power wheelchair or for treatments, what are you going to do if you lose power for important devices? Severe winter storms, as the picture shows. Again, stay informed, listening to your radio and the TV, listening on your, checking your computer or your cell phone, knowing what's going on. Similar, they've made the words mean very similar things. So a watch again is that something could be happening. We're watching to see what will happen if a bad winter storm could happen, might happen. Advisory warning means it will happen. It's just not happening right now. That's the warning again. So a severe winter storm warning means a bad winter storm is going to happen, or it is happening right now. So again, understanding the words is very important as to what you need to be doing, getting ready, or need to be doing as buckling down or getting somewhere else if you need to. Thinking about winter storms and many other things for all hazards approach is being able to shelter at home. So you're ready to take care of yourself at home. We're going to talk more about a kit and other things you're going to need, but for right now, planning ahead, you're going to be staying at home. So what if your service providers can't come? The roads are so bad that the visiting nurses or the physical therapist or maybe your oxygen supplies are not going to be able to get there, or your medicine's delivered, or you can't get out to get the medicine. So that's some of the planning we're going to be thinking about for winter storms. What happens if you lose electricity? It could be extreme heat, in this case, extreme cold. Power lines go down. Thinking about if you have electric devices, do you need extra batteries for them? Thinking about getting the more expensive 10-year life batteries for devices that are critical, like flashlights or other medical treatment type devices. Do you have a car adapter that could charge your cell phone or your radios and make it up that way? Maybe a solar charger. Or how can you do things differently? If the power's off, your electric stove's not going to work, so you're going to need to think about, how do I prepare food without electricity? Also, in sheltering at home, it's critical to think ahead of time. When do we need to leave? When is it going to be important? It might be when it's just the storm is a watch or a warning or an advisory. At what point do you think I need to be leaving this home? It's getting too cold. When is too cold? Is it when the house reaches 50 and you know the storm's not going to be getting any warmer? Is it that electricity is not going to be repaired soon? Or knowing I don't want to be isolated out in a rural farmhouse if the storm's going to be that bad. do you want to get out before the storm even hits to a place that might be safer for your child? Thinking about winter storms and sheltering at home, realizing that service providers may not be able to travel to your home. So do you have the things and the knowledge to do what they might be doing? Or, in some cases, do they have an emergency plan? So for instance, if your child is on oxygen, what's the plan of the supplier of that oxygen? And asking not just do you have a plan, but what is that plan? Is it realistic? So for example, I recently asked a supplier of oxygen for a family member. Yes, they have a plan. They were very proud to tell me. And they told me, well, they would get that oxygen to my sister in this case, no matter what. Well, that's not a realistic plan. I was not comfortable with that. And I asked, well, if I know that her oxygen is going to probably run out before a 3-day event was going to happen, could they come out ahead of time before they're scheduled and get that done? And that is a more realistic plan. We know there's a high chance of a storm. There's a high chance the oxygen's going to run out during that period. Can you bring it out ahead of time? Think about pandemic disease. Now that could be something that's passed person to person through our hands, through some type of insect or animal, or just person to person through our coughing and sneezing. Again, stay informed by your TV, your radio, what's on the computer, what's going on, how is it passed, be aware of how those things happen. Learn about the precautions. It might just be hand washing with soap and water, or it might be using one of the hand sanitizers. It might be protecting yourself from mosquitoes and staying inside. It might be that you need to stay at home and not be going out. And it might be that you need to leave, and leaving your home only if told it's safe to do it. For pandemic diseases, again, it doesn't matter so much the cause, but let's think about if you're told to stay at home. How will you take care of your child? Again, another situation where you might be taking your child at home for a period of time, and it may be longer than 3 days in this case. Again, there might be no home services coming, so how are you going to get those cares or supplies? It might be that you can't go out, so you can't go to the pharmacy to get prescriptions and meds. Or again, maybe loss of power. If a pandemic is that bad and people aren't leaving their homes, power companies could go down in the worst case scenarios. So thinking through, how am I going to take care of my child without supports? For all other emergencies, stay informed as these two young men are doing on their computer or with your radio. Stay informed. Follow the instructions. Stay at home, get out, your precautions. Listen and do what you're told to do. And be ready to take care of yourself for 3 days and leaving your home if needed. How are you going to do that? So let's go to step 2. That starts on page 3 of your booklet, and it's to complete a personal and family assessment. You can see on the next page, on page 4, that there's a whole bunch of charts starting that are going to have you fill them out. And it's going to help you to start to think about things. What types of things to be listing, getting numbers down, realizing what your child can and can't do. And again, here's that list again that's going to help you go through about how are you going to be alerted? Can they get to a safe place? Can they stay at home? What if you have to leave home? What are your ATs and other medical supplies? How does your child do activities of daily living and treatments? And how are you going to recover and return home afterwards? So all of the following next charts, and it's kind of a loose way to help you fill it out and think about it. But it's going to start on page 4, for instance, and have you think about how you're going to be alerted. Can your child even hear? Or do they need to be told about certain alerts? If you go to the next page on 5, when we're talking about evacuation, do you need a special equipment? What if you have the accessible van with you and you're not able to help? How is your child who needs an adapted van going to get moved to somewhere else? At the bottom of that, can your child give directions to others? Do they need to be able to say, this is how you get me and move me around? Taking shelter. Again, each one of these, or personal care, is talking about how does your child communicate? Do you need to be writing down directions so if somebody else has to take care of, give their medicines or prepare their special diet? Bathing, can they say all of the information that's needed to somebody else if you're not there? Or do you need to be writing that down so it's available for other people? Listing of your devices. Checking to see if the power company has a special list and asking them, what does that mean exactly? Not just, yes, we have a list and we'll get to you. Is it really, can we get to you as quick as possible? And what does that mean all the way down the line, power line of what has to be done to get to your home for power? It may not be immediately or even within 3 days. Knowing your medical supplies and assistive technology, what you might need to grab and take, or other things. Once you've gone through all these forms then and kind of thought and identified action steps and identified, is that your personal and family assessment checklist then is going to help you create a plan that you'll use with others. So this is that part of the planning. You first have to know what you need to be planning about and around, and then use that to plan for some of the next steps. Step 3, page 10 in the booklet. You're going to develop a personal support network. This is not often talked about very much in FEMA or Red Cross planning, but it is really important for families who have children with disabilities or chronic health conditions. The idea is that there's going to be a group of people, your support network, that are going to all work together to help provide the things that your family, and especially your child with a disability or chronic health condition, needs. They're going to work especially to support you in that care, or you may not be in the equation at all, realizing that you may be involved in the disaster or the emergency and not available to help your family, or worst case scenario, you have been injured or even killed in that disaster. So you can't rely on, oh, I will do that for my child, or my husband will do that. Not assuming those things, but planning for, I won't be there. Possible members of your support team, as the list shows you on that page, is that think outside the box of just you and your immediate family, or even your extended family in the area. Think about friends, neighbors, roommates of your child, personal care attendants, people from your place of worship, possibly their teachers, or families with children who have similar support needs that you could rely on to you. For instance, go to their home if need be, your secondary evacuation place. Thinking about they might be more prepared to deal with a child like your child if there's autism involved or a specific mobility type. Possibly co-students or co-workers of your students. Notice I have not put in there official caregivers, so not the visiting nurses, not your case manager, not the hospital, but realizing that this is your network to take care of yourself, because official care providers or service providers, if you will, may be involved in the disaster themselves, and they have many other people to care for. They can't specifically give the one-on-one care you need. So part of your personal support network activities you'll see is to ask and confirm the promise that they're going to help. Not just assuming your neighbors will jump in, not just assume that the roommates will help your child if he's living in a dorm in college, or the church, or whatever, is asking and confirming so you have a real plan, not one that's based on assumptions. So the forms that you will see on page 11, you'll be filling those out and actually talking to people and identifying what it is that they'll be doing for your child and committing to do it. And you'll see there's 3 forms. That's because you really need to have a network that's 3 people deep in case they get tired and worn out, their life changes, and because of the disaster they can't help anymore, or they're gone, things like that. So 3 people deep. So there's 3 forms to fill out. And you can see on the form, first we're talking about who the plan's for, your child's name, contact information. For other people, that would probably be you as the parents. and then the network number. So it might be a neighbor, let's say, or grandparent, or aunt, or something like that. So what the role is. And then you're going to use the tasks. Just go down the tasks. And it might be that they will do some and not others. So for instance, if we're talking about sheltering a secondary shelter, they may agree, yes, we're the first person. Come to us, you can stay at our home. Or they might say, well, we don't really want to do that, but we'll be the backup. So if you can't, if primary, for whatever reason, can't do it, yeah, we'll be your backup home shelter. And then any notes that might be pertinent, that, oh man, you might need to give them directions about how to give your child medicine, or how to do an activity daily living. These types, that's what would be in notes. Or unfortunately, that note column means that they're saying, no, I can't do that, or in reality, they can't do it. They don't live nearby, so they can't go and help your child evacuate to the basement during a tornado if you're not there, because they're on the other side of town. So that's the primary and the backup, and the additional information. Once you have gone through that with your support networks, then you need to share those forms with everybody else. Make copies so you have them, and that each member of the network has the other two persons' sheets so they know who to contact for backup or more help. Also provide the network with any important information at that time. So other contact information, list of the medicines, how to do any treatments, any specific information to your child, about your child, any special instructions, and keys to your home, so they can get in and get materials or supplies that are there if they need to. It's important then that each year you go back and reconfirm the commitment with the support network. Their situation may change, and your child's situation may have changed, where they may have been more than willing to help with the child with physical mobilities when they're smaller. As the child gets physically bigger, they may not be able to do it. Or the support network person may have moved. They may have moved, physically changed, so they're not able to do it. So there's a variety of reasons on both sides of the equation to go back and reconfirm it's okay. Now let's move on to step 4. Gather emergency, papers, and medical information. Starting out, a long list on 16 is going to tell you it's all there. The types of information you need to gather, either photocopy, take a digital picture of it on your camera or your cell phone, but gather the information, the list is all there, and filling out forms to share. Why do you need all this? Well, we have it at the house, it's somewhere. This is going to not help during a real emergency or disaster. First, realize that you may be separated from your child, or the family may be separated from the child. So this information needs to be gathered. Also think about your house may be gone. Your desk will no longer exist, or you can't get to your desk to get the information you need, assuming that it's all in one drawer and all together in your desk. You might not be able to speak, or your child might be unable to speak. So having this in a written format is very important. You may be lost or separated from assistive technology for your child, their medicines, or their medical supplies. So it's important to have the information about those things so you can get them replaced quickly and easily. And also, you're going to want to get in touch with family and friends and other service providers. So, using the pages 14 through 15, it's going to help you gather the type of information you need for contact information, meeting places, insurance, all different types of insurance papers for health, home, or auto, any legal papers, adoption, guardianship papers are all going to be important. And any just plain good to know information is part of this. So, things that your child would react to negatively or positively, things like that, special diets. Other information, so contact information about, to get the information for supplies and equipment. So the medical conditions, prescriptions, child-specific information about their disease or diagnosis, assistive technology, medical supplies, and how to contact your service providers. Where should all of this be kept? Well, we've moved to a new world, so no longer do we say put it in a notebook and make copies of it, but you can store it in the take and go bag, which we're going to be talking about in some later steps. Make sure your personal support network has information. Keep it in town. So somewhere else besides your take and go bag. That might be in your purse, it might be in a USB, it might be on your cell phone, but also in another out-of-town place that's everybody knows, well, if we can't get to any of these, we can go to our own email once we can get online, or call another relative who might have it. In case of an emergency, ICE information, ICE information, is a shorter version of all of this, just the primary information about your child, who they are, their contact information, important critical information, their allergies, the medicines they're on, their diagnosis, things like that. So it's a much smaller, just a briefcase, credit card size something that can go in your wallet, or also information into our cell phones, into your cell phone or iPads now. It's very important. So they can have medical providers can get to you to contact you that something has happened, or if you're separated from your child, or knowing important medical information. So important to always have with you and on your child. Step 5. Now this one I know is a little bit hard and a little bit touchy, but your medication and treatment supplies. If you go to page 20, it's going to ask you to have somewhere between a 3, 5, or 7 day supply of medication and treatment supplies on hand. We realize that that's very hard, especially if you're on Medicaid or Medicare type of or other insurance to pay. So we want you to do the best you can. In this way, we're talking about things like gloves for treatment, syringes, oxygen, all of those types of things. It will be helpful, for example, to keep the meds and your supplies, medical supplies, in one place, not in multiples around your home. That way, if you need to shelter quickly in home, for instance, in a tornado down to the basement, is that you can gather them quickly and get them to the basement so you have them, or that somebody else can come in and find them easily. The other idea is to refill as early as possible, checking with your pharmacy and your insurance to find out how soon can I get it refilled. Not till it's empty, but can I refill it when there's 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days left. It's very important. It's going to vary from insurance to insurance company, but finding out what that is with your pharmacist or your insurance company and getting that. Also, other important things is asking your pharmacist, do they have an out-of-town backup? Now, if you have your child's prescriptions filled out at one of the larger chains, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Hy-Vee, those types of things, is they're going to have your prescription on a computer that can be accessed from another town if need be. So if their physical building is lost, is that your records are still available from another pharmacy of their chain to get to. But also talking to your pharmacist and your doctor about what should you do if you think you're going to run out of medications. Again, oh, we'll get them to you isn't a good answer. The answer is, what if an emergency or disaster is happening? What should I do if I'm going to run out of medications or medical supplies? What am I going to do if I run out of sterile gloves to change a dressing, for example, or if I'm going to run out of syringes? What should I do? Or if I can't get a specific treatment routinely, what should you do instead? What's the best way to deal with that? Step 6. This is the build the plan part of that national message. Build an emergency supply kit so you can stay at home. This is how you're going to be able to stay at home. If you go to page 21, you're going to see that the lists are all there. So as I go through things, you don't need to be writing down notes. It's all there. But the planning part of this and having a kit is realizing your home you may have to leave home. Part of your home may be gone because of a tornado or a flood. The kitchen with all that food may be gone, and you're sheltering in the garage. Or the garage may be gone and those tools are gone. So thinking again, planning for the worst so you're ready to deal with it. Without power and maybe without part of your home, or that you're going to have to stay in just part of your home. So your emergency kit, It is going to actually have two parts to it. There's the shelter at home kit that has items, and there's the take and go bag part of it. Altogether, this is your emergency kit. Some items may be in both if you choose to and can afford it, that's fine. But totally, we can also divide the things we're going to talk about into the two separate containers here. So, the shelter at home part, think about some type of container, but don't choose that container until you've gotten your devices all together that you're going to put in there so you know how big it needs to be. It does need to be waterproof. As you can see here, I have an example of a garbage can or a Tupperware. It could also be something smaller like big Ziploc bags, something like that, depending on, again, your size, but that does need to be waterproof. You need to label it with your name and contact information. Also make it really clear by the label that these are items not to be used or borrowed from, that this is easy to get to place, and that these items are just for emergency. The type and size is going to be determined by the type of items you have, the number of them, your storage space. Not everybody's going to have room for a garbage container. The size that can be handled by whoever's going to be dealing with it. Can they lift it? Can they move it? A garbage can with wheels is much easier to deal with. And what your budget is, what you can afford, new, used, washed out, whatever you have. The take and go part of it is supplies that you're going to need if you're going to leave your home. Similar to the other one, the size and the type are going to be determined by the item, size, and what you have, the abilities of the person who's going to use it, and your budget, new, used. So for example, if you look on the right side, a rolling suitcase is easy to move, but also if you think about a parent, you can hold it with one hand and hold your child's hand with the other. It might be a backpack. Your child might have a backpack that they can carry, or a bag that they could put on the back of their wheelchair. Or it might be that you want both hands free, so you want a large backpack on your back, so you have two hands. Or on the left is the example of a fisherman's vest that has been converted to hold many things that would be in your kit, again, so you would have two hands, and in the back would be holding things like an extra set of clothes. This could be for a parent to have some of the items in it for the take and go bag plus a suitcase, or it might be something that a child wears and helps you carry some. So again, depending on the abilities of your child and their needs and your abilities too. So let's start talking about what needs to be in this kit. The first thing is to think about survival, is that you need water to survive. So the rule of thumb is 1 gallon per person per day. So 3 gallons of water for each person. That seems like a lot, but you might not be drinking all of that water. You might need it for cooking, you might need it for some cleaning, you might need it for other things. The size of the type of container you use is going to again be determined by what you can handle, your budget, or your storage space. So it could be very inexpensive gallon jugs that are available of water, or it might be larger containers of water if you can handle them, or a case of just plain individual serving water bottles. Again, depending on what works best for you. Think about food for 3 days. You need food for each person for 3 days. Now you'll notice in the back there I have everything in a bag, in a grocery bag type thing. That helps things stay organized in the big kit, so you don't have to rummage quite through so much. So think about food for 3 days. The first, as you're planning for this, to put this into your kit, is realize this is basics. It's not vacation. It's not a holiday. So the main thing we're concerned about is calorie intake. A small peanut butter jar, like the one in the picture, and a box of crackers actually has enough calories to sustain an average size adult for 3 days. So it doesn't have to be big and fancy. Well, yes, I understand 3 days of peanut butter and crackers could be old, but we're talking survival. But also think about, as you're choosing your food, your diet restrictions of your child, what you can afford, likes and dislikes, of course. You want non-perishable food, preferably food that does not require cooking or cooking with water, especially. You don't want to use a valuable resource of water in this case. Also pop-top cans if at all possible, so you don't have to worry about a can opener or a functional can opener. And then think about hard candy also as an option and a quick reviver in many situations. So that, it can be power bars, it can be prepackaged meals, again, that don't have to be cooked, that they are fully cooked. The example of chili there, it could be soup or chili, anything in a can, doesn't have to be heated. You can eat it at room temperature. And also something to flavor water can sometimes be important for children to get them to drink it. You want disposable utensils for 3 days. Again, I'm showing this in a Ziploc bag to keep things organized. You do not want to have to wash dishes and worry about any type of infection. And include a can opener in case people bring food that isn't pop-top. First aid kit. The size of it will be determined by your family size. There are larger, easily around $15 at most of the box stores that would serve this purpose, or smaller ones like this is a safe travel medium-sized one that might be available if you don't have a large family or could go in your car for later. You want cleaning supplies in there. Again, to clean an environment that's been ravaged by a tornado or a flood, we start out with hand sanitizer. A pump is better than having ones that are on cloth in this case, because then you have garbage you have to deal with. You're going to want to be able to clean things up. You can do that in a variety of different ways. You don't need all of these things, but think about how you're going to do it. Do you just want disinfectant wipes that you can use? Or do you want to use paper towels and household bleach? Bleach could also be used to purify water. The directions are on the bottle. You want regular household cleaner that you can clean things up. It could be a concentrate in the example or some other type of just generic household cleaners. And then you want nitrile gloves, not only so you're protecting yourself from the household cleaner or the bleach, but that the environment may be very contaminated from floodwaters, for example. You want a toileting kit. Now the idea here is that again, part of your house with the bathroom might be gone. You might be down in the tornado, for a tornado in the basement away from your bathroom, and you're going to have to figure out how you and your child can go to the bathroom if need be. So the first thing to create a toileting kit. In the picture are two examples of sealable containers. These are both fluid pitchers, easily available. One's a little bit larger, one's a little bit smaller. And in it you can store your toilet paper, hand sanitizer, grocery bags for solid waste, and then a garbage bag to collect the toilet paper or the solid waste in it. You're going to want to be able to keep warm and have towels also. And again, depending on your budget and your space, what you already have, it could be something old or something new. So an old blanket or a new blanket. Do you have a sleeping bag? Would that work? Or something very small, if space is the issue, is just a space blanket. Those aluminum foil type devices that are going to keep somebody warm. An old or a new towel, or something very small again, for if space is an issue, is a microfiber towel. Toolkit. Now many people are going to have lots of tools around that you're not going to have to buy new, but collecting them up. Actually, a scavenger hunt with your kids helping might be very helpful, and they can start gathering what's already out there to get the things together for your shelter at home kit. So it doesn't necessarily have to be new. But the typical types of everyday tools, hammer, pliers, screwdrivers, some type of knife or cutting tool, waterproof matches or a lighter, super glue, hand sanitizer, more garbage bags, masking tape and duct tape, a MacGyver's toolkit, if you will. Now, those are all things that you're going to need in the home, and you might need to take them somewhere else depending on the situation and how bad the emergency or the disaster is. So you'll have all of those available, but now we're going to talk about what's in the take and go bag. And you might need these while you're sheltering at home as well. You can also choose to duplicate, put these same items in the shelter at home kit, or it's between the two, you have all of these things covered. So the first thing, you want some type of device that's going to keep you apprised as what's going on. So a radio, a weather radio or a regular radio, realizing that your cell phone or your iPad is also going to help keep you apprised of things, or you can get a regular radio app on your cell phone. And so your cell phone can actually become a real radio. And that some of the connectivity may not work if the towers go down during a disaster. And your take-and-go bag, you're also going to want flashlight and batteries, a pen and paper to write down information in case you're not remembering things very well, some cash. Some cash would be beneficial if electronic cash registers aren't usable because there's no power. You're going to need regular cash. How much? Well, that's how much can you afford to tuck away in your take-and-go bag and not use. So every little bit helps, $5, $10, $15, $20, $50, whatever you can put in there. A whistle is important because if you're in a situation you're calling for help, your voice is going to give out very, very quickly, but you can blow a whistle for hours on end until somebody can hear you. Also, the higher pitch is easier to hear than your lower voice. And you're going to want your emergency and medical information that you collected in an earlier step of this plan. In this case, it's all on that USB on the keychain with the whistle. You want a set of clothing for each person in your family. It can be old or, of course, it can be new, but it's not a fashion statement. And you want things to be long-sleeved in case it's cold. You can cut them off if need be. So, long-sleeve shirt, long pants, long-sleeve jacket, underclothes, socks, and shoes. And you'll notice again, I have them all in a larger bag and collected together. Personal care items, a ditty bag, if you will. Again, in some type of sack or a bag or a Ziploc bag. The things that, depending on your family member and your child, but hand sanitizer so they have their own if need be, deodorant, lotion, shampoo or soap, sunscreen, toothbrush and paste, hairbrush, lip balm, any personal products that would be needed, for example, for a young girl or a teenager, and then some type of distractions, games, books, card games, something like that. Rain gear. Could be old poncho, new poncho, or again, the space type blankets can be used as rain gear also, and some actually have arms and sleeves in them and a hood. Then, the important part of that take-and-go bag for staying, whether it's staying at home or taking with you, is looking at your child's special personal considerations. What are their AT, medicines, supplies, and having those ready and available to bring along with you, or you're going to have replacement costs for them. So let's talk about medicines and medical supplies. You can have extra if possible in the kit, or at least put a reminder on the top of the kit to remind you to go get them so you have them. Things like catheters, catheter bags, treatment, gloves, bandages, the oxygen, those types of things. What assistive technology? Remember you did that in the personal assessment. What do they have? So have extra in the kit or a reminder to go get it. Chargers or batteries for the equipment, are they needed? Think about low-tech options. So if your child uses a power wheelchair, do they need a manual backup chair? Think about whatever assistive technology is used in their activities of daily living. Are there eating aids that you want to have extras in the kit and ready to go? Radger greepers, transfer boards, canes, crutches, things like that. What does your child use that you need to bring along if there's a flood to make sure you take it with you and you evacuate your home? AT for vision or hearing. All right, if your child wears glasses, for example, you want a glasses case with their name on it and their most recent no longer used glasses in case they lose their current ones. With the current prescription in there, so you can get a replacement with the correct prescription as soon as possible. Contact lens supplies and the prescription. A magnifier if need be. If your child has visual impairments or is blind and uses a white cane, a replacement cane. That's important. We learned from the floods that have happened that the contaminated flood water, when it touches anything, it has to be thrown out. So if they've walked through flood water to get out, now their white cane is no longer usable. It's been contaminated. So you want to be able, in case it's lost or contaminated, it needs to be replaced. If your child uses hearing aids, you want to make sure that you have spare batteries and a case to store it in to keep it safe. Thinking about communication, we need to think about not only children who use communication devices, but also realize that if they have hearing aids and they lose their hearing aid, they may need assistance in communication also. So making sure to get their device and their batteries and chargers and have those along if near possible, but also having backup low-tech options, paper and pencil, a dry erase board, or even if your child uses a communication board, is that this is available, and again, you can get a PDF of this to print off if you want and laminate it for your child. And it has the communication symbols that are often used on communication boards, or the ABCs and numbers that can be used for communication. So some type of low-tech backup for communication. If your child uses a wheelchair or a scooter, you need to be thinking about, well, do we need a manual backup in case it's lost or hurt or damaged? But think about a repair kit. Again, a MacGyver type repair kit that will help your wheelchair or the scooter work until you can get it fixed. Depending on the type you have, to fix a flat tire, again, you may not have that type of tire and you wouldn't have to worry about that, but lubricant, duct tape, super glue, tools, and protective gloves if a manual wheelchair especially is going to be used to keep their hands safe from being hurt by debris or contaminated. If your child has emotional, cognitive, or behavior disabilities, thinking about the supports that you want. Not only what do they use routinely, but think about the emergency situation. Earplugs or muffs might help dampen the noise that would cause distress. Having a black garbage bag and masking tape can either create a visual block of what's going on, if that's necessary to keep them calm, or create an actual isolation booth for them. What items might help keep them distracted? Games that are on your cell phone or an old electronic game, or comfort items that might be needed, and that could be music or a special personal item, like a special blanket or a stuffed animal or something that's specific to help keep your child calm in that situation. Part of your emergency supply kit to shelter at home is also for your service animal for pet. And again, the list is all available in the workbook. But thinking about labeling that container in case that pet kit has to go somewhere else, to someone else's home or to a special shelter. And thinking about that your pet or your service animal also needs water and food for 3 days. Do they have medication or medical information? Water and food bowls, replacement collar and leash in case it's lost or contaminated, and same with service harnesses. Think about their sanitation needs. Again, if they can't go outside, you're going to need a grocery bag, garbage bags, hand sanitizer, paper towels or newspapers to help dry the animal or the environment, or some type of rubberized rug for them to stay and be able to be dry. So that's your kit. And now you've got the kit, and it may take some time to gather that up, but the final step of Prep Kids now is how to make your home, daycare, school, work, and car safer. First, making your home safer. Think again about where your take and go bag is so you can get to it quickly, and that everybody knows where it is. Not just mom, but even the kids know where it is if they have to get it in case you're not there. Know how to turn off the utilities. And that will make your home safer so service providers can get to you if need be. For example, in a fire or a flood, they want to make sure that the electricity is turned off in a flood. So instructions might have to be written down so you remember that in an emergency setting. Take pictures of home items. That is so insurance will cover things quicker and easy. And that's a great activity for your child to do, actually. Take your digital camera and take a picture. Here's the living room. Here's the couch, here's the desk, here's the digital 48-inch TV. Yes, we really did have one. Here's a picture of it. And of their assistive technology and medical equipment, things like that. Take a picture of the family. So if you're separated from your child, you can show a picture that says, here I am with my child. Or the caregivers in your support network, that would be important too. And don't forget to plan for your pets. Similarly, we want you to talk to your daycare and your school to make sure they're safe for your child. What is their plan for your child? Not just for the school in general, but if your child has special needs or chronic health conditions, how is that taken into account? Can they hear the alarm? If not, how are they going to be alerted? What's the evacuation plan? Can your child do that mentally and physically? Is this shelter accessible? Is your child included in the drills? Well, just like we suggested for you, if the child is not actually participating, then how are they going to know what works and what really doesn't work for your child in that situation, that shelter, that process, that procedure? Does your child know the emergency exits, and are they usable? And think about what emergency kit might be needed for your child, special to them, that separate comforting device, or medicines, hard candy if they're diabetic. What types of things will they need to have there? Very similar, the same type of thing if your child is in a volunteer, an internship, or a work setting. What is their plan for your child? Exactly like at school or daycare. How are they going to be alerted? What's the plan? Can your child access the shelter? Are they included in the drills? Do they know the exits of that different setting than your home? Are the pathways clear and accessible for your child to exit? And again, is a personal emergency kit needed in that work situation? And then think about your car and or other transportation systems that your child might be using. Be aware of what's going on. That's that stay informed. Before you leave on a trip, make sure you know what you're heading into. Keep your cell phone charged, your child's cell phone charged, and a charger in the car. And have a car emergency kit with blanket, water, snacks, flashlight and batteries, paper towels, and again, your emergency and medical information. That redundancy is important to make sure you can get that information when you need it. So we've gone through the PrepKids 7 steps. Know your emergencies and what to do. Do that family assessment that's going to help you create your plan. Create a personal support network. Gather your emergency papers and medical information, and we're suggesting in a digital format that can be stored in multiple places easily, and it could be an encrypted USB. Try to keep at least a 3-day, if not up to 7-day supply of medical supplies on hand and your medications. Make an emergency supply kit. We talked about your shelter at home and your to-go kit, and have that list of items for you to gather. And make your home, daycare, school, or work a little safer. That is your 7 steps to complete using the workbook. If you do that, you'll be informed, you will have made a plan, and you would have built a kit. Thank you for listening today. PrepKids. This project was made possible by the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. It's supported by a grant from the Administration for Community Living, U.S. Department of Human Services. Its contents are solely the responsibility of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official view of the Administration for Community Living, HHS, or University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital.